actively packed story, and if there's any budding or writer or author in this audience tonight, I believe we have a bestseller. So what I'm going to do, and I can't span 60 years in the few minutes given to me, I want to perhaps give you the headlines of the chapters which we could write in such a book on Telfed. Now, chapter 1 would start in 1948, when the guns were blazing, the nascent country was fighting for survival, and amongst the soldiers in this country were 800 plus South Africans that volunteered to fight in the War of Independence, the Machalnikim. They were screened and chosen by the Federation in South Africa, sent to Israel to fight in the war. And the Federation said, well, look, we can't leave our soldiers to their own in Israel. We've got to establish some kind of office there where we can send them our parcels, the food parcels from home, distribute cigarettes, give them their pocket money, and perhaps most important of all, there being no postal services between the two countries, the Federation provided such a service for them. So the Federation opened what was called the Israel Office of the South African Zionist Federation, a small room at number 13 Achada Up Street in Tel Aviv. Now, the job soon became overburdening, and the small little room that they had was no longer sufficient. So they moved to 109 Hayakon Street, which I'm sure many of us remember with affection, and particularly may I mention Mrs. Lutran, if you remember her Café Nes on the basis of Chalav, with those gorgeous shmarim that used to be on top of the shelf. So those were good times in Hayakon Street, 109 Hayakon Street. And the South African Zionist Federation Israel had been formed. Now, we shouldn't think that the Federation was the first South African presence in the new state of Israel, because prior to the state, there were some 200 South African entrepreneurs, chalutzim, businessmen who founded enterprises which today are household words, and people have forgotten that their origins were in South Africa. We can remember the Binyan Insurance Company, which was the founding body of Migdal Insurance today. And the Binyan Mortgage Bank, which was the founding enterprise of Bank Leumi. And the cold storage, and many more. And it seemed to be forgotten along the way, and that's why I repeat once again, the office open. If anybody really wants to write an exciting story, here I'll give you a few more tips. These entrepreneurs actually formed the first executive member, Mesh, you may not know this, but the first executive of Telfed. Telfed was the nickname given to South African Zionist Federation because that was the telegraphic address. They were the entrepreneurs, and I'm not going to mention their names. There were 9 or 11 of them, if I remember correctly, who actually formed the first executive. Now that, I would say, would be our first chapter. The second chapter would deal with the period just after that, the 1949 to 1951-52, which was an action-packed period where the Federation was busy trying to find all kinds of ways of helping those Machalnikim who wished to remain on in Israel, help them with the Klita. And also, perhaps even more important, for the Machalnikim who went back to arrange their affairs and settle up in South Africa to help them return to Israel. In addition, we had some maybe 40, 60 Olim every year at that stage, so they had to be catered for. So the first project that was ever undertaken by Telfed was a project in North Tel Aviv. And if any of you wander through North Tel Aviv today, just off Yehuda Maccabi, there's a street, a very pretty tree-lined street called Boulevard Jan Smuts. Now what's Jan Smuts doing in Tel Aviv? He is there because the Federation built, and it's still there today, a project called South African Machal Shikun, where those people were given special subsidized mortgages, by whom? Naturally the Migdal Binyan Bank. So that was the beginning of many projects, and I did a count a short while ago of similar projects which we have undertaken over the years since then, and I came to the count of 29, which I think is a marvelous achievement for a relatively small organization. When I'm talking of projects, I'm talking of the establishment of Yeshuvim, whether it's kibbutzim or moshavim or urban areas.